Okay, so we obviously PCP Wales, Public Child Protection Wales, and we're going to be talking today about a campaign that we are running, Education Our Say Our Way. Firstly, I just want to say how we are a newly formed organisation. All of us who were involved in the organisation didn't know each other back, well, I keep wanting to say a couple of months ago, but we're well more than a couple of months now. So it would have been back last August.
Six, 7 months.
Well, July, August. Yeah, July, August. I know it was August for me that I contacted Kim for the first time. Back then, PCP hadn't started. It was Kim running the campaign, Education Our Say Our Way. And kind of what developed from there with this education is more and more failings, safeguarding issues that we're coming across within schools, within social services, within the police force, with training, support. And we realized that there's a huge gap here, and there's not been enough done, that the levels of safeguarding in place isn't adequate. And from that moment, kind of PCP Wales was formed. I know Kim would probably like to say that this is a team effort, which it is, but for me personally, Kim is the one that had the fire and the drive with all of this. I like to think that she's the brains behind the whole operation, but we've all got something that we are bringing to this. But for me, I think Kim is definitely the person that shouted the loudest and said, come on, we can do this. And that's what we are doing. So Public Child Protection at Wales now, we want to provide the government and the educators with the information, with the policies that are the ones that are going to protect the children, because the ones that they have in place are not adequate. They are not good enough. There is not being enough done. And we firmly believe that between us all, that we have the skills and the knowledge to be able to bring a great safeguarding and policies, procedures, packages to the children of Wales, and that's what we're here to do. First and foremost, obviously, we have this campaign, Education Our Say Our Way, because of the new curriculum bill. And in the new curriculum bill, it is mandating RSE, religious relationships and sexuality education, from age 3. To many, they think, well, what's wrong with this? Well, it's not about that. It's sex education. It's the sex education that they're bringing in, which is a global comprehensive sexuality education. And our research, our investigation into all this has left us horrified at the organisations that our government is putting in charge of educating our children. So that is the main form of who we are and what we are doing right now. So we are fighting to remove the mandatory element of RSE from the curriculum bill. We want to remove UNESCO and WHO from our curriculum bill, and we want to form and make a Welsh education for children which fits the 3 elements of sex education, which is safeguarding, health, and safeguarding and biology. And we believe that those are 3 separate issues, and they don't fall under the same umbrella. Particularly, you don't safeguard children against sexual abuse by teaching them consent to have sex. It's just not the way. So that's what we're doing. That's our aims, and they're our goals. And I think what we're going to do now on this show is just bring it back to the beginning for you and go through step by step on the developments of how this happens and to where we are now, what knowledge we have now to what we had at the beginning, including not just the contents of the education, but the government, how they have lied continually through this, the complete lack of transparency, which is huge. You know, we have an education minister who is stating that this has been done by Welsh parents and Welsh educators, but we don't seem to be able to find any Welsh educators or parents that are aware of this new curriculum. So that's what we are going to talk about today. Oh, I think Lucia is coming on. Hi, Lucia.
Hi, Adele. Hi, Kim.
Lovely.
How are you? Okay?
Yeah.
Good. Sorry I'm late.
It's fine, love. You haven't missed anything. Adele has just given the introduction really on who we are and why we fighting the campaign, why we formed Public Child Protection Wales. So that's pretty much where we're at right now. We failed to stream to YouTube, as usual. We should have done a little practice earlier on, but we didn't. We failed that.
Okay, I did have a look. I was looking for it because I wanted to share it onto Facebook, but I couldn't see it, so I assumed something had gone wrong.
Yeah, so we've failed a little bit there. So we're live streaming off our phones now onto the channel, you know.
Yeah. So, Kim, do you want to pick up on anything now? Do you want to just say how, perhaps obviously back in January, how you first discovered the curriculum bill and that we were getting a new one, and it, you know, and the mandatory elements, and then we can go into what we discovered about some of the lesson contents that we have found this education has been providing so far.
Yeah, well, for me, as you know, Del, like yourself, we were aware of this global sex education anyway. You know, we knew it existed, never ever thought it would be part of us because it's not us, you know. And it was an article online, now I can't remember if it was the BBC or Wales Online, and that article just mentioned that we'd lost our parental opt-out for RSE from age 3. Now, I wasn't aware of anything at all to do with the curriculum. I knew there was new things coming, and I'd seen other people taking part in it. I knew there was an element of mental health coming into it and things like that. But it wasn't until that article that I realised what was actually going on. So with that, I went straight online to look at any RSE contents. And obviously, because you know what you were looking for, I found the RSE draft. So the RSE draft is this, and the reason why I'm going to show people what it looks like is because if somebody sends you a screenshot, you will recognize the document. The RSE draft was this one. You can't see it on that. I'm filming this now, so you can't even see. So that's the RSE draft, right? And on here, it's a lovely document. You've got lots of studies done in schools in Wales on different aspects of what they're telling you you're bringing in. But page 4 is the giveaway. Page 4 tells you straight out. In here, you've still got a parental opt-out as well, right? So it's so this is very much outdated. But on page 4, it tells us that it's not mandatory for this RSE to be taught in primary schools in this document. But if they choose to, then they are to refer to UNESCO, which is the global sex education. Well, that's the alarm bells for me. UNESCO is this document here. Now, this was pretty new to me then, because I hadn't really seen this before, but obviously a little bit of digging around then, I found that it was part of the document which I was familiar with, and you are familiar with, and that's the World Health Organization document. This document actually has, well, they want sex education from birth. This is where they talk about sexual rights, and part of those sexual rights mean that you can have voluntary sex. you know, if it's something you want to do at any age with anyone, you know. So it's quite graphic, this document is. So we've got childhood masturbation, age 0 to 4, and people think, oh, you've taken that out of context. It's not taken out of context at all. Not only does that sexualize children, it is a barrier to disclosure. So why are we still talking about this document if it's the history of this document? Well, actually, guys, it's not the history of that document. Because what you'll find online is there's a document online, and it's called the Sexuality Education in Europe and Central Asia. Now, this document is 25 studies in here on 25 different countries. From page 8, it tells you about they use the World Health Organization document to convince children's commissioners and governments and select committees from all over Europe and everywhere else. And UK was the last place to seal the deal for Europe. Well, on page 174, this is where it tells you exactly when they signed up to it. It's a study done in England. The study was carried out in England, but it also tells you it applies to the rest of the UK. And in here, it tells us that everyone signed up to the World Health Organization document. So when you do a little bit of digging in Wales, at our own documents then, because obviously our draft doesn't tell us anything about the World Health Organization, just UNESCO. Well, you go back a little bit further and you've got this document. Now, this was in 2017, and this is another report where they put together an expert panel, and these experts now, they all agreed on the World Health Organization document. Now, this is why this document is important. You have to look into it, because to just the ordinary eye, you wonder how the hell these people in high places chose this document. You know what I mean? It's flabbergasting. Moving forward then, this is another document, which is a Welsh document, and this was published after the RSE draft, where it speaks about UNESCO. But in here again, it references the World Health Organization document. And this is what people are confused about. They think because these documents are fluffy and they got this lovely stuff about Wales and everything else, that's what we're going to be having. But you've got to ask yourself this question. How can we possibly be having something different if they keep referencing this global rollout? They actually signed up to this. They want sexual intercourse by the age of 9. Between age 4 and 6, they want children to behave confidently and use sexual behavior in a non-offensive way. Now, we are being told that we're misinterpreting that, so I'd like to argue, well, I'm going to wait for a 4-year-old to come home and explain it. There's a lot of problems with these documents, this one in particular, and it's very easy to read. And this is why we can't let go of this document.
Yes.
We can't let go of this. Go on, Dal.
I was going to say, and I just we need people to know that that is important, because we get a lot of messages saying, show me where it says masturbation from age 4. And because it no longer states it in the 2018 UNESCO document from age 4, we don't care. It says it in this WHO document, and this WHO document is still referenced throughout our education.
But this is it. This is
Yeah,
what
well,
I was getting to now. So like people keep saying as well, show me in the Welsh curriculum where it says 3-year-olds will be being taught about masturbation. Well, I can't do that. But what I can do is show you where in the Welsh government documents it references this document that wants masturbation from birth. What I can also do is I can show you the UNESCO document, the new UNESCO document that they've brought out now, which doesn't speak of masturbation from a young age, but they've got packages for self-stimulation from age 6, some schools from age 4. So we've gone from childhood masturbation to self-stimulation. This is a resource which is not in the current document, but it's a package the schools are being told to use. This comes from United Nations. So, you know, so although our Welsh government documents do not say 3-year-old children will be masturbating, the evidence is overwhelming. The evidence is overwhelming. That just shows you how they change terminology. Now, because you've got to understand that people say, why hasn't there been uproar over this? There has, and there is. There's
Yeah.
21 campaigns in the UK. You know, that's without around the world. And this is what people need to look at. You need to look at these things. These documents have got history as well. That UNESCO document, the 2018 one. Our documents tell us that our government signed up to a global sex education in March 2017, right? They signed up in March 2017. I don't care what they throw in my face in 2018.
Yeah.
Because as far as I'm concerned, what happens in 2018, 19, 2020, and 2021 is a whitewash. This is what they signed up to, and this is what they want. This is the ideology. This is what our children's commissioners think this is okay.
And can I just mention there as well, I was looking through some documents earlier, some report, I think I was on the Hub website, but I'm not quite sure. And it is talking about how sex education has developed in Wales. And in that, it is saying how it was March 2017 that Kirsty Williams came forward with wanting to do a reform for a new sex education. So at the same time, the UK government as a whole signed up to this WHO document. That is the same time that Kirsty Williams also brought forward a new sex education. So that 2018 UNESCO document wasn't there yet. So I can only assume that it was the WHO document that Kirsty had also brought forward, because that is the one the UK government as a whole signs up to, and that will include Wales.
That's what this document tells us.
As well, even though the UNESCO document looks a little bit more fluffy than the original WHO, it does say from 9 years old, 9-year-olds are actually told that we as human beings are sexual from birth. Now, it does actually state that in the UNESCO document. So why on earth would we want to be teaching 9-year-olds that?
And not just that, Lucia, it's also the other organisations that are involved. So, for example, IPPF. So, for me, I'm looking at what are the values and the ideologies of the organisations involved in this. So you've got IPPF, International Planned Parenthood Federation. They're based in London. They are also referenced throughout the UNESCO 2018 UNESCO document. But however, the IPPF also have their own documents and own guidance and own framework, and one of them is called Exclaim. And I just want to show you here, which is something that it says, which for their Exclaim magazine on sexual rights, it states that young people are entitled to sexual pleasure, and on how to experience different forms of sexual pleasure is detrimental to their health and well-being. So again, it might not state that in the UNESCO document written like that, but we know the people who are also helped construct this UNESCO document, this is their view, that, you know, young people are entitled to sexual pleasure. What age is young people? You know, we can't stress this enough. It's all there. Anybody looks into UNESCO, WHO, the other organizations that are involved in writing these UNESCO documents, constructing these UNESCO documents, their views are all the same, that children are sexual and children need to be taught about sexual pleasure. Yeah. That is the basis of these documents, to teach children sexual pleasure, but to keep them from contracting STIs and getting pregnant. That is the basis of these documents. And people need to be, you just need to look at it. 1 hour looking at these documents and you will know this yourself. It's there in black and white.
Exactly. Anybody who just looks, as you said, like into the history and into the thinking behind the education, they will know then it's not about protecting children at all. It's actually just come from this ridiculous school of thought, well, perverted school of thought,
Yeah.
that children are sexual and should be able to give consent, because that's
Yeah.
what it all comes down to.
Yeah. Do you want to speak of some of the lesson contents that we have discovered so far, Lucia?
Well, yeah. Well, first of all, there was in 2018 in England, there's the All About Me schools. So we didn't really hear that much about it, considering it was only in the UK and there was a lot of uproar within the schools there. But these schools did teach about masturbation from age 6. Now, I've looked at other articles as well, and they were teaching about sexual intercourse as well from the same age, at the same age. Now, parents didn't even know about this. Easy to research as well. You put All About Me in your search engine, and it comes up with loads of articles, lots of complaints from parents. Parents didn't know about it until they actually came across it by accident in their homework, and it was like pictures of, you know, naked, you know, drawings of naked men and women showing where their genitals were, and that's where that thing comes from as well, doesn't it, Kimberly, that you showed regarding the self-stimulation? That actually came from the All About Me schools as well, didn't it?
Yeah, well, on the note of All About Me, I just want to say where you said that the parents didn't know. Actually, one school out of the 241 schools did send out a letter about it beforehand. And they said that it was a mistake and it was a typing error. So this is something people need to look out for as well, because we're hearing a lot of this. We're hearing a lot of these, that this is sent out by mistake. It's not mistake at all. It's in the resources, you know, it's in the resources. And going back to that All About Me, when people say this is the safeguard, guys, please just throw this All About Me in their face, because in this All About Me, okay, there is a barrier to disclosure. So a barrier to disclosure traps a child in abuse. Now, if this safeguarded, there would be a gateway to disclosure. But nobody in any school or any educational establishment can point out if there is a barrier to disclosure or if there is a gateway to disclosure. There's a barrier to disclosure in here, and it's worrying because this is originally for children age 6. Now, in some of those schools, there were children age 4 in those lessons. So those children, they're not able to communicate very well. And what this actually does, this programs children away from what we call a spontaneous disclosure. And even just for that fact alone, we should pull the plug on it, you know. But what they pulled the plug on this particular piece because the parents saw it sexualizing. Okay, and I'm not saying the parents are wrong. I wholeheartedly agree with the parents. But what I'm saying is the removal of this for that reason is wrong, because it's far more serious than that. Now, this was removed overnight, and this is another thing people need to realize now. These things can be moved as and when they please, okay? They can come, they can go. The masturbation, early childhood masturbation, turned into self-stimulation, okay? And it came from a different document. We cannot trust these policy changes, and that's why it's important we fight the curriculum bill. The curriculum bill is the legal makeup of our education system, right? And what that does is it forces the schools to teach this stuff. And the schools have got to do it, right? They've got to do it. It's in the bill. It's in the legislation. So, and part of that legislation, the schools have got to make sure parents don't opt out. So if a parent becomes a little bit of a problem, that school is not going to go back to the government and say, oh, Mrs. Jones is having a mad tap over this. That school is going to go to local authority, because in that school's eyes, what that school have been told is you are breaching your child's right to education, your child's rights, and then from that can be child's sexual rights. So this is why we can't afford to accept these policy changes. We have to go for full reform. While we've got this opportunity now, we need to make a blessing in disguise out of this then, you know. So this, people need to be mindful of these things, all right? There's a lot more to this stuff than meets the eye. And when we are campaigning against this, we're not campaigning against relationships or safeguarding. We're not campaigning against the nice stuff in the documents. We're campaigning against the bad stuff. We want to repair the bad stuff. And the best way to do that is by taking these global entities out of our country. You know, so we shouldn't be treated like this, because we're not robbing anyone of an education. We're not putting anyone in danger. In actual fact, we're pointing out dangers, and we're putting ourselves out there to change these things, you know. We're not standing there with our blackboard saying, no, 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 we don't want this. We're saying it's dangerous and it puts children in harm's way, and that's something we should all be taking on board.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I just touch on something you said there in regards to the curriculum bill and how it works with schools? Because it just made me think of one gentleman we had in the group who had spoken to his school, and his head teacher or teacher had told him that they would not be teaching this. And he was just so adamant, no matter how much we were trying to tell him that it was, you know, mandatory and these things, that he was adamant that the school has said they're not going to teach it, so therefore he, you know, he's gonna believe the school. And then some people would know, some people don't. You know, I've spoken to my own school. I sent them a letter. I had a letter back, not from the school, but from the local authority, although the school, in their reply to me, just echoed a statement in this letter from the local authority, which was, we have to teach whatever the government tell us to teach. I found this alarming, because you're going to teach something you haven't even looked into that is mandatory from age 3 and contains the word sex. And your stance is, well, we have to teach whatever we teach. So we understand this is confusing to some people when the schools are saying we won't teach something like that. Yes, they will. The schools have to teach whatever is on the curriculum. And the reason that this has been made mandatory in the first place isn't because parents were withdrawing their children from sex education. It's because the schools are failing to teach it correctly in the first place. So their answer to that is to mandate it. Essentially, they're mandating it on the schools, but it's not being mandated onto the schools. It's our rights that are being taken away. So it is imperative that you know and understand that no school can say to you that they are not going to teach this, unless they are saying it to you in a manner of, no, we are protesting against this.
Yeah.
But if they are saying they are just not teaching it because they don't have to, that is wrong. If they are saying that they are not going to teach it out of protest, please send them our way. We need these schools on board with us. We would love schools and head teachers and governors all to get with us now and all make a combined stand and say, we ain't having this. You've lied, you've not informed us. We don't even know what we're teaching, and now we're discovering it. No, like, we ain't doing this. But if they're telling you on the basis of they think they can do different to what the curriculum is telling them, but they are misinformed and they are misinforming you.
Well, I had the same with my daughter's head teacher when I was outside the school giving out leaflets, and she wasn't happy with me at all. And she was like, no, I don't. It's all on the website what we're teaching, and they have got a section there with saying about they're going to be bringing in relationship and sexuality education, and it doesn't look bad. It looks quite fluffy, and it doesn't look like there's anything. It doesn't mention anything about sort of masturbation or anything about teaching sex to the younger children. It was sort of saying it was going to introduce this later on. But what really did stand out for me, and only because I know this campaign, what did stand out for me is it did have a link to the United Nations. So straight away then, it does ring alarm bells, because This education, the RSE is now in England, as we know. Is it called RSE in England?
Yeah, it's called RSE. So again, there's a lot of confusion because it started out as SRE.
Yeah.
So we've not had it SRE here because the name got changed before it's been introduced here. But SRE and RSE are the same. Except
Well, essentially, it's actually CSE, right? It's
yes,
actually
let's
CSE.
call it the correct term.
Yeah, it's comprehensive sexuality education, and it's in all the global documents except for obviously our country's using a different term. And my guess is because we've just introduced a new CSE, which is child sexual exploitation. So we're just getting used to that. So we can't exactly use CSE and CSE in this country. That's my guess anyway. But yeah, so let's call it what it is. It's CSE. It's comprehensive sex education from the United Nations, the World Health Organization, CICAS, and the Kinsey Institute. Oh, and Planned Parenthood.
And Planned Parenthood. They are the key players in this. These are the people who were involved. We mentioned the name Kinsey. People say Kinsey's dead. The Kinsey might be dead, but his legacy, if you can call it that, lives on. The Kinsey Institute is still up and running, and the Kinsey Institute is now part of the United Nations.
And the Kinsey Institute is still acquiring research.
Yes, yes,
Still
absolutely.
acquiring research. If you don't believe us, go on, download the app, okay? Download the app and you put in whatever information you want into that app about any sexual act with any age, and the police will not come knocking you a door. This research still exists to today. You can look at a documentary as well, Secret History, Kinsey's Pedophiles. Listen to them tell you. Don't listen to us. Listen to them. Watch them laugh over this research. Watch them tell you how they are protecting the criminals. Watch them tell you how they've acquired terms such as sexual from birth. And also watch them tell you how their work desensitized them to sex. And then you put that in a classroom with your toddlers and you think about that.
Yeah, I just to mention on that. So one part, I hope I'm not going off from anything now, Kim and Lucia, in terms of your stance, but I just want to say this. So again, one big part of this, which is already being rolled out, and which will probably be the first thing to be rolled out or introduced gently before it comes in fully in September 2022, which is terminology. So people are asking what's wrong with children knowing the correct terminology, but not only are they going to know the correct terminology in terms of vulva, vagina, penis, scrotum, testicles, anus. But with this also comes pictures. I was only looking at a resource for Norfolk the other day, and it's a lesson plan. It's a whole lesson plan, and it's talking about how the children will be encouraged to put penises and vulvas onto bodies. They'll be shown pictures of penises and vulvas, but this also includes adults and how adults' penises and vulvas look. Now, for me, a child, when we start normalizing adult genitalia to children, you are taking away that repulse reaction. So, for example, even myself, I can remember being young. There was a much older a boy on our street. I think we were playing like foxes and hounds, something like that, ran around the back of a house and he pulled his willy out. And it was hairy and big and not like how my brother's penises looked. My reaction was to recoil. Oh! My reaction was straight away, just by looking at it, I knew that I shouldn't be looking at it, and I ran off. That is an impulse reaction in us as children when presented with something like that, is to recoil. When we start showing young children these adult genitalia from a young age, we're going to desensitize and take away that natural recoil they would have had at looking at this adult genitalia. They've become normalized. They're normalizing looking at adult genitalia. And again, this becomes a safeguarding issue. When you have a child, might be exposed to this genitalia by an adult, that recoil isn't going to be there. They're so used to now seeing it throughout school and it being used in its correct terms, penis, that we are normalizing children seeing genitals, being around genitals, talking about genitals, when a big reason for these being private is a child then knows there's something a bit wrong when they're seeing someone else's areas that they've always been told are private. They've been taught that are private. When we expose it and make it so open like that, it's a huge safeguarding issue that we've now created, because
it's not just that, it is the fact that they've got to explain the feeling and what they can actually do with it. You know, it's just beyond. So when people say, correct terminology safeguards, in actual fact, it doesn't. There is no science or evidence to suggest either way. It's what you, a child, can comprehend. It's what you, a child, is used to. You've got to speak in a language that you, a child, can understand. Like Adele said many times, we're not going to say, oh, I've jammed my flange in the door. You're not going to do it. You need to speak in a language that children understand. But you as an adult need to be educated. You need to be upskilled. You need to be prepared. You do not put the responsibility of safeguarding on a 3-year-old child by normalizing sexual behavior.
And just don't they, about if a child is being sexually abused, if they know the correct terminology, they can explain it to someone. But it's like if a child was trying to explain that something was happening and an adult didn't understand terminology such as, I don't know, your foo-foo or your flower, then they are not trained at all in safeguarding like that.
Absolutely. And this is what we're being told all the time, and I keep getting like that flower and cookie. Actually, I've even heard the term mouse. But if there's parents out there calling their children's vulvas a mouse, I can see how that might be a bit confusing, why you would name it an animal. However, again, I've heard this, well, what about when a child says to a teacher, my uncle licked my cookie? Well, that is, if a teacher then has no time to speak to that child, again, that's already a big issue that we've got with schools, that teachers clearly don't even have time to have a small conversation with a child in their classroom. Now, if that teacher, even before being trained in safeguarding, the answer back would be, what cookie was it? Who made the cookies? Who bought the cookies? Was it your cookie? There would be a follow-on question. And if it was that child is talking about its genitals and not an actual cookie, then the child's next answer is going to show that pretty quickly. And that's whether it's a flower. My uncle's licked my flower, ate my flower, sniffed my flower. What color was the flower? Where'd you get a flower from? Any question that would follow up on that would soon make you realize. And the answer isn't to teach the child genitals. We all know as adults that we've all got nicknames for our genitals. So it's educating and having those teachers safeguarded, trained in such a manner that they're always aware if a child comes and says something to you and it doesn't quite seem to fit in what they're talking about, always be aware that that child might have a nickname for its genitals. Probe, ask questions.
And I want to add to that as well. Something else we often get a lot of with this self-stimulation. Well, children need to know it's not dirty. If a child is felt is made to feel embarrassed for touching themselves, like for whichever way, that's on the adult, not the child.
Yeah.
That is on the adult, not the child. It's as simple as that. You've
Yeah.
got this all wrong. You don't put it on the children, you put it on the adults. And it's about time we all put on our big girl pants and we took this serious.
Yeah. And in the same manner there, touching on that, Kimberly, obviously is, I know we've kind of wandered off on how we wanted the content of this going, but it's all still relevant, so we'll come back to it. But I just want to touch on the biology side whilst we're just saying about this. Because again, we're getting a lot of feedback around puberty. Now, we are aware in particular that puberty is happening much earlier, and it is very difficult to say what is the correct age to start a puberty conversation. In school, at home, a puberty conversation should come as soon as you notice your child's having puberty, and just the fact their breasts are budding should tell you that. But in terms of school, how do we know which age is appropriate when you have such a vast range of ages, in particular for girls to start puberty? My own daughter was only 7 starting puberty. However, 99% of the rest of the girls in her class are not starting puberty. So first of all, I want to say, like that, puberty, it's biology. But again, I want to go back to the parents. And where is the education coming from? The parents. As women, we have a daughter. It is our duty to then tell them about their body and what is going to happen to it. We tell them, when your tooth gets wobbly, it's going to fall out. Your hair gets longer. We tell them other things about their body. You need new shoes because your feet have grown, because you have grown. You need new clothes because you have grown. So we tell them all these things about their body. But again, this comes back to parents and educating parents. We educate parents and get parents confident in talking to their children about these things. Have parents educated on what to look for in terms of abuse. Have parents educated on who are the abusers, because they are not just people in the family, and they are not all strange. In fact, we teach our children stranger danger, but yet the risk posed least to our children is a stranger, at least whilst they're younger. However, we do know strangers now in terms of online is a huge risk. But I'm talking now, I'm not talking online danger now, I'm talking in those who have access, immediate access to your children. So I just feel we need to change this. We need to change how girls perceive their bodies around periods in particular. Our bodies are amazing, absolutely amazing. There should be no shame, no guilt, and no embarrassment around periods. And I think this is something else that needs to be happened, and something that also, that should be tackled, that whilst being taught about this, there needs to be no shame to it, no embarrassment, and again, get the parents involved so that they are talking to their children too.
Yeah, because very often, right, parents need help and support. Sometimes parents need someone to turn to. Like I've raised 2 boys on my own, and I remember making an appointment for my son to go to the doctor's. The doctor could teach him how to check his testicles. It's just one of those things. I needed to reach out to someone, and I turned to the GP for that. It is too important for him not to be able to know about things like that. So because I'm not a man and I'm not clued up about it, I don't avoid the situation. It's something that needs addressing. And it's as simple as that. These things need addressing, and that's how you keep your kids safe. It's not about sexual freedom. It's about sexual health and confidence,
Yeah, and we wouldn't object at all if it was like the education about sort of puberty and period.
Sorry, lady, I'm just going to jump out for 10 minutes and I'll be back.
Okay. Yeah, that's not what we're objecting about. We're just objecting about this sex education. It's already in 52 countries, Kim, isn't it? 52? And we've already seen that there's content, education books, just information that children are being taught, and it's inappropriate. It's not appropriate for, it's definitely not appropriate for the children of Wales. It's not appropriate for any children.
Some of these resources and books that they're being told to use have been banned.
Yeah.
There's one, I can't think of the name now, begins with M, and it was written by six people, and it spoke of 6-year-olds giving oral sex and things like that. That book was banned completely. It was on our school shelves, not our school shelves, but it was in America. This is not a 21st century education, okay? This is a 20th century education that's coming to Wales in the 21st century. It's not new. Go looking, go looking. I've got, what have I got here now? Let's just show you a couple, This is just a little bit of a history. So the UNESCO document, which I've just shown you now that they've got, there's another UNESCO. There's another UNESCO. Oh, look, right from the start. This starts from birth to age 5. Right from the start. Published in 1998. They all written by the same organizations. They all come from the same place, and they've all got the same ideology. Adele has written to UNESCO herself, because there is not a reference in these documents for sexual beings. It does not reference it. So Adele's written to them to ask them, how, I'm writing a report. Where does this come from? We know exactly where it's come from, table 34. But, so guys, the ideology is there. If crimes hadn't been committed against children, we wouldn't be having these discussions.
No, exactly.
These documents wouldn't exist.
Exactly. And
we're going to pick up on some more lesson content, Lou, because we cut you off a bit and we on your...
No, that's absolutely fine. Yeah, so lesson content, I started with England, so I thought it's the best place to start. The pilot scheme, rather, the All About Me, it was stopped. However, it's been sort of reintroduced into England now in September 2020. We haven't heard a hell of a lot, but there has been some circumstances now that has actually come to mainstream media where parents have complained about content. So there was an instance in the Hull High School where a 13-year-old girl, well, it's actually a brother of a 13-year-old girl that had put a complaint because his sister, who was 13, she was researching pornography, and the schools actually said, no, she wasn't meant to be researching it, all the detail was there. But the point was, this education was actually given as early as 11. And then there was another circumstance with an instance that happened in a school. It was a 10-year-old girl who had inappropriate homework. It was actually telling her to finish sentences such as, I fondled, he stroked, or he fingered. It was all things like that, and the mother didn't let her daughter see that homework, and that came to the mainstream as well. So there's been a couple that have come to the mainstream, but we haven't seen it in full. We haven't seen it fully yet, like in other countries, because countries all over the world now, they've had this education for a couple of years. So it's really important to remember as well, just because it's not coming into your school immediately and it looks okay to begin with, it doesn't mean it's going to be like that. It doesn't mean that things aren't going to start coming in when people become a little bit more comfortable with it, I suppose. So I was looking in particular at like schools in California. Now I know this is all the way over in America, but remember this is a global rollout and it all comes from the same documents. So it is relevant. So in California, there was education where parents were in uproar. They were teaching, I've written this word down because I can't pronounce it. It's BDSM. So that stands for bondage, dominations, and sadomasochism. I think I said that right. Now they were actually teaching that. They're teaching that in the schools. Okay. Also, along with that, they've got things like fisting, urinating on each other, and encouraging anal sex for all sexual orientations. Now, this is education which is already in the California schools. Now, we've also seen in Texas, as young as 5, they're teaching, oh, sorry, I actually missed that in California, also teaching human trafficking as well, which is really, you know, I suppose like sensitizing children to things like that. Like why would we do this to our children? Why would we put these things in our children's heads? It's absolutely, it actually like really scares me, like what they want to teach children. And like in Texas as well, they were bringing in paedophilia studies for children as young as 5, which actually makes me absolutely sick, absolutely sick. In Washington as well, they've got this, I looked at a curriculum there, it's called the 3 R's, responsibility, risks, and something else. I can't remember what the other thing was. In the curriculum there, it's actually got, I can actually give the link out to anyone that wants it, because I can't remember the name of the link, but it's actually got a copy of the curriculum there, and it is teaching children about the body parts from age 5 and teaching them about what happens during sex, so like where the penis goes, etc. And it even talks about the genitalia in detail. At age 7, then they introduce the clitoris as well, which, you know, is obviously something you don't really want to be teaching 7-year-olds. So this is like information I've got from over in America. We've also we also know about the Scottish curriculum, which is really, really quite, God, I can't even think of the word.
It mirrors much of what you've said earlier with the BDSM and the anal sex. It mirrors much of that, doesn't it?
It does. And there's the curriculum, the education material is very cartoon-like, and it makes it all look very fun. And there's a guy there, he's talking about like putting a load on your face. We've got like things talking about threesomes, and this is education that's going to be taught to schools, and it really puts it across as something which is fun and should, you know, you should be experimenting with it, and it's not something you want your children to be thinking about or even, you know, or watching. It gives this thing about like freedom, sexual freedom, and that's what scares me the most. And something else I want to touch on as well is in Norway, where they've got the naked adult shows for children. So there's children of primary school age, and they are watching these naked adults walking in, and it's to do with I suppose they say it's to do with not body shamming and, you know, like seeing that everybody has different bodies. But again, like what Adele spoke about before, we're desensitizing children to looking at naked adults, which is a safeguarding issue in itself. And,
you know, and that takes you back again to Kinsey's team. They've admitted themselves, you know, that filming all these sex acts would desensitize them to sex. They would, you know, they'd have trouble being turned on. So, you know, if that's there for an adult, what's it doing to these little minds? And we already know children are concrete thinkers, wet concrete. We drop something in it, you leave an imprint. And that's what we are doing to these children's brains.
Exactly. Well, children actually, from the age of 0 to 7, this is where children really get all their values. This is where, like, they get like their imprint, if you like. And, you know, like, you know yourself, like where children may have had troubled childhoods for whatever reason, they have to work hard as an adult to overcome those obstacles. So there are a lot of values that are imprinted. And as you said, yes, it is like concrete. You tell a child something or you show them something, and their brains are like sponges, aren't they? That's why they learn so well. So if you're teaching children about sexual activity and sexual pleasure before the age of 7, before the primary school age is very young to be teaching that anyway, but if you're teaching them that from the age of 7, then that becomes a value that's actually imprinted in them for life.
I want to stick to the Scottish curriculum a minute, right? So what Lucia is speaking about is the SNP curriculum. So they've got online 100 lesson plans, and not every single lesson plan is bad. You know, obviously there's elements of great stuff in there. You know, like I said, we're campaigning against the bad stuff. We're not campaigning against the good stuff. But what you'll find on these lesson plans is there'll be, like, say, 3 resources at the bottom and 3 links. And you'll see they have been commissioned by the NSPCC. So the teacher's going to take one of those videos and they put it on. For the first 2, 3, maybe 4 minutes, it's a really good video. And then, bam, straight in there, colourful. It's advertising all these different types of porn. They're tying up a chicken, telling you how many people like bondage. They've actually, the way they speak about girls is disgusting. They've got a hot dog bun with 2 hot dog sausages coming in like that, saying how many % of girls have like threesomes. This is going to be played in a class for 11-year-olds. Kirsty Williams has quoted the Scottish curriculum. Right, now I spent a little bit of time taking these clips now from the Scottish curriculum, making them into 45-second videos to put onto Twitter, so when people were scrolling, they could see the entire video, right? And I kept tweeting Kirsty Williams all the time. Bearing in mind, the time I was doing that, I didn't know Kirsty had already referenced the Scottish curriculum. Now these bits, so guys, so don't think that we are protected by devolution of powers at all, because we are not, right? We are not. We've got it. There's a blog online. There's a guy who's highly involved in education from the University of Trinity in St. David. I think his name is Gareth Evans. And there's a blog online where Kirsty Williams have said he's misinformed. She has quoted the Scottish curriculum to them. Okay. Now, these particular videos was commissioned by the NSPCC. So I've written to the NSPCC because I want to know exactly who. Because if we commissioned a package, it wouldn't be a package by Public Child Protection Wales. It would be a package by Adele, him, Lucia, Grace. It would be named who took part in that and who supports that. You know, we would never hide behind a brand, and that's what people are doing here. So I've questioned the NSPCC because during these videos, they're talking about these different types of porn. And they say, mature, mature. And for mature, somebody's bent over a Zimmer frame. So I've asked the NSPCC, what is amateur? If mature is a Zimmer frame, what the hell is amateur? And so far, we've got no reply. You know, what's the opposite to a Zimmer frame? Again, guys, Bernardo's supports this RSE. I've questioned them as well. Written to them, you can see the email. I have put a series of questions about this sex education. And Bernardo's should be in a position to answer it. Bernardo's cannot answer it. So I've replied to them. I thanked them for their reply. And I've said, thank you for your reply, but you haven't answered my questions yet. Does this mean Bernardo's does not know? So we cannot hide behind these global brands, guys, okay? Or these big names. Because like I said, children's commissioners were involved in this. Now, either they are blind, right? Or they really are as thick as 2 planks, to be honest with you, right? Because how they think these documents are appropriate, I just do not know. I haven't got a clue. We can't rely on them. What we did, we've put out the survey and we've had over 600 responses to this survey. And in that survey, it has 2 questions. Country of residence, and without using a search engine, do you know the name of your child minister or children's commissioner? 87-point-something% of people don't know who it is. And they've been in their post for half a decade, right? The people that do know who it is think it's Kirsty Williams. So we cannot bank on these big names or these positions of trust. We spotted flaws. We know it's flawed and we know it's not suited for us, and that's what we've got to act on. Yeah. We do not hide behind stakeholders. We are challenging the stakeholders. We are going for names. This expert panel, we've got their names. We know their occupations. We know where they come from. We know their work history, and it's not adequate. Simple as that. It is not good enough. And until we get a panel that is good enough, we're not accepting any of this education, not a single bit of it. Yeah. Because a few studies have come back, you know, and people will argue against these stats. But one study's come back and said that this is 87% failure. Well, how much of that 87% failure are you willing to accept? Because I'm not willing to accept any of it.
And can I stay on that as well? People are saying about this is about, you know, we've got the highest STIs and we've got the highest underage pregnancies. And this is about, well, hold on a second. So we might reduce one, but how much is child on child sexual abuse and sexual assaults and rapes happening? So we decrease one and then not pay attention to the increase of another. I was looking online yesterday, somebody tagged me and said, have you seen what's going on in Australia? So I had a little look, and there's big scandals at the moment, particularly with some private schools in Australia. New South Wales is one area, Sydney is another area, where, and not hundreds now, thousands of girls have come forward to say about how they're being sexually assaulted in school. Now, there's a big campaign going on in Australia as well, to have consent taught in schools. These girls have all released testimonies. There's extracts from these testimonies. These testimonies are saying how, so for a lot of girls, it was, so for many girls were under the influence of alcohol, so weren't in any state to consent. Some girls kind of remember what was happening, but just felt not in control to stop it. Some girls, it was they were waking up with somebody on top of them, and a lot of the time this somebody is a boyfriend. Again, girls saying how they're saying no, and then they're pressured into it. And the answer to this seems to be to teach consent. And I can't get my head around this. We, on both sides of the coin. So is it that we're teaching girls to consent to sexual acts? So again, we know from the resources for the sex education that by the time they get to secondary, although they're told kind of it's learning what a bad relationship looks like, they are very much being taught how sex is fun, given resources to look at around sex, which we know includes things like bondage, anal. Myself and Grace were looking at the one the other night, which was asking children to write a sex list of all the different things that they could do with their partner and then compare with their partner.
Was that the sex-wise?
That is, no, that was from, that was the link from Family Planning Association.
Oh, okay.
So we are now going to be, we've talked about this a lot of times, the difference between male and female hormones, the differences that girls and boys experience going through puberty, hormones, the differences in biochemistry between a boy and a girl, and how, sex is not the same for both genders. And this is very much then teaching, especially girls, that, this is fun, this is pleasurable, it is good. There's recommendations, be with whomever you want, experiment before you settle down. So we've got consent in teaching, we're teaching girls to consent to this fun, your boyfriend's not wrong by wanting to have sex kind of thing. Or is it also that we're teaching boys consent, that a girl has to consent? But it should be pretty obvious that when a girl says no, that she is not consenting. It should be pretty obvious that you don't have sex with an unconscious girl. And it should be pretty obvious that if your girlfriend is saying no, 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 and you've badgered her until she is saying yes, and then she is lying there not participating, that it's a no. Your inbred morals should know that. And again, this is where we are talking about how the prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed until you're in your mid-20s, and that last bit to develop is reasoning, is control. And we're asking for these young children then to engage in foreplay and various sexual acts
Before
to
that.
use a condom, and expecting them to have the maturity, the restraint, the control, the reasoning to do this then safely, when it's more likely that in that moment, when the hormones are fully going, there's foreplay involved, that it's going to be difficult because of the brain development for a child then to say, oh, I think I better stop here, or I think I better get that condom out of my handbag or out of my wallet.
Yeah.
These
consequences so much, don't they?
Absolutely. And again, this is why we have got such big issues when people are saying that you have to learn consent. Children have to learn consent. What about these young girls who have 14-year-olds who have met a 17, 18, 19-year-old boyfriend, and he's manipulating, he's exploiting her? As far as she's concerned, she is in a consenting relationship.
Exactly.
However, she is still being abused and she's still being manipulated. And people need to realize that a teacher telling her that she is being manipulated isn't going to cut it with how she feels to her boyfriend. If you can have abusers take these children away from their families, if you can have abusers take a grown woman away from her family and have her, before she knows it, she's in a abusive relationship, what chance has a child got against an adult who is manipulating them and trying to pull them away from school, from adults? And this is what we're asking people to see, is you need to see the bigger picture here.
Not just the bigger picture. Let's look at the facts, right? Let's look at the facts now. Consent is a massive element of sex abuse.
Yes.
Child sex abuse. It is key. It is the key component to the definition of child sexual exploitation. Let's forget about the age of consent, because everybody in this country under the age of 18 is still a child. And the definition of child sexual exploitation covers that between 16 and 18. It covers people who consent. Now, consent as well is also problematic with prosecutions, right? Now, like you said, Adele, now these children very much love their abusers. We shouldn't be telling these kids, if it feels good, you consent, right? We should be teaching these kids the consequence of consent. So the consequence of the biochemistry, right? The consequence of that person is in the wrong. That person is breaking the law, and that person is going to go to jail, right? It's not, it's not a case of if, it's when. And the sooner that person is brought from that environment, the better. Because like you said, these kids love these abusers more than they love anyone else. So we need to teach these kids what happens, the consequence of consent. Completely different, completely different, So like no child, we've seen it. Abusers have gone to jail and those children have written to them.
Yeah.
So these kids need to understand, we can't dismiss these kids' feelings because it's how they feel. It's the chemistry going on inside of them, it's their hormones. Do not dismiss their feelings. You dismiss their feelings and you're pushing them away. You've got to get them to somehow realize that the consequence of these feelings and the consequence of these actions is going to have a massive impact on this person they believe they love.
Mm-hmm.
And the sooner it's nipped in the bud, the better. Now we've got children's books, the one with the uncle, and the one with the uncle that he abused the child, and then it came out that he had told the parents, then they'd apologized and everything was all right. Now these are in kids' books as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
It's
And just, you know,
being
in
sold on
terms,
Amazon. That
Oh,
particular.
sorry, love.
Isn't that book being sold on Amazon?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
and we are saying again with these UNESCO documents, some of the guidance. So the guidance very much goes into sex from age 9, and one of the guidance areas is that for the age 9 to 12 bracket, is that a child should know who to turn to if they think they are pregnant. I have posted this numerous times and the response is always the same. Why wouldn't we tell a 9-year-old where to go if they are pregnant? Because if a 9-year-old is pregnant, we have already failed it. And if this sex education is so good for, in terms of before we've got this, it's going to protect all these children from abuse, then how have we now got a 9-year-old who is pregnant if all the education before age 9 is safeguarding them so well? How have we now got a 9-year-old pregnant? 9, 10, 11, 12. If they are pregnant, they have been raped. They have been abused. They have been manipulated, because no child of that age can consent to any kind of sexual activity.
That's
So
a fact.
yes, like, and people are not seeing what the problem is here, that over from 9, we're going to be starting already talking to them about what could happen if you are pregnant, who to go to, talking about abortion. You know, again, these have huge consequences. Huge consequences. You have adult women. I myself had to go through a medical termination in my mid-20s, and it destroyed me. Now, we are not talking about this is not talking about the consequences of these actions. We are making it normal. We are making it normal for children to go on to contraception. We are making it normal for children to seek abortions. Now, this isn't about pro or choice. This is about the emotional repercussions and consequences of a young child going through this. And also the fact that we are telling them that they don't need to inform their parents, and their parents do not need to know. Any person who had the vast majority who had a child underage will tell you how terrified they were of going to their parents, but how their parents actually supported them and helped them. Now, what happens when we have a child who has gone through abortion, and now you have a parent who can't understand the change in their child? Why have they changed? Why are they so suddenly depressed? Or even more, why is my child, what is wrong with my child up in the bedroom? And the child could be hemorrhaging, too afraid to now tell their parent. We should be encouraging children to be open and have transparency with parents. And we should be educating the parents again that their children are vulnerable to these things. Even joking things like saying, don't you ever come in this house, if you ever come here pregnant, you'll be out that door. We might not mean it, and we're joking to our children, but this could be the smallest thing that then stops them from coming to you for help.
Yeah.
Because as a child, you don't quite know if they are joking.
Yeah.
Are they being serious? And this is what we need to be talking about.
And something like this would be massive for a child anyway. It would be huge.
Yeah, you can't not have their parents knowing about this, and because they'll be going through it on their own as well. And
Yeah,
that's
and again, we do recognise that for some, again, for a small percentage, it could be that they were abused by a parent. It could be that coming home and telling a parent this, they are at risk and they are vulnerable. But
tiny
then there
proportion.
has to be another signpost for them to go to, so they still have an educated, trusted adult to go to, not just an organisation that is going to send them packing for an abortion with no support whatsoever. It's not the way.
no.
Right then, ladies, we're coming up to it. We got 10 minutes left now, so we're going to wrap it up now in the last 10 minutes. What do you want to say, guys?
Is there anything you feel in particular that we've possibly, the thing is, we're going to have missed out loads because we cannot possibly put in what we know into this small part. And I do think it is really important that we are highlighting the safeguarding issues that we are noticing, as much as we want to bring up, and we can go into, not even started on the, as you said, really the history of who these organizations are, what they promote, what they're about, where their money comes from. Again, that's another whole show. So I think it is really important.
Tonight, guys, was supposed to be our first live stream onto YouTube. So what we wanted to do for you, we wanted to take it back to the beginning, and because obviously there's lots of areas we still haven't covered and we're going to need to cover. But now that we're able to live stream to our YouTube, obviously this is going to be uploaded now from Jason. But we wanted to set the scene for you, so lay the foundation. We're going to go back as well when we first interviewed Professor David Payton. Obviously we've come a long way since then. We'll get him back for you. We'll be interviewing Miriam Grossman. We want to get as many people in. Oh, we've also got as well, quite a surprise for you guys. We've actually got hold of Flo Job, who was the drag artist who went into the schools in Scotland. Now, look that up, Flo Job, and you will be mortified, but Flo Job has agreed to come on and speak with us. So we've got, we got to have a bit of respect there, guys, because what we need to do, we need to unite. Because I don't think they expected the backlash they had either, We don't want to be inciting hatred. We need to be recognizing these issues together and coming together, So the whole purpose now of our Sunday slots are going to be to lay the foundation for you guys, show you where we've come. If there's anything you don't understand and you want to show on that, we'll arrange it. But in the meantime, we're going to try and fetch back some of the people we've interviewed to start fresh for you off our own platform, as well as Wake Up UK. I'm sorry if there's anyone on Wake Up UK tonight. I can't possibly see the things, and I've tried it on my phone and I can't log on. So I'm sorry if there's anyone in the chat on Wake Up UK. I haven't seen
anything either. So
I just want to say as well, because we are also now in contact with all the campaigns in England. So I'm going to reach out, myself and Grace are starting to reach out to some of these, and I think it would be a great idea if we can get some of these other campaigns on with us as well to explain what is happening in England, because I know we have an awful lot of English parents now on our education group who are also concerned, wondering how far is this implemented, where is it implemented, what schools, how can they fight this too. So we will start joining others and bringing other campaigns, and we're all going to unite now as as the UK. As Kim said at the bottom, it is the UK that signed up to this. Our governments are now just implementing it separately, but let's just get it gone from the UK altogether. We will start by smashing Wales first, and then we will smash the rest of the UK as well.
For example, guys, we really can. Adele Cartjoy is saying here, I'd like to watch that show, Adele Childs, about where the money comes from, etc., and the entities behind it all.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's stomach churning. That's all I can say. I've only done some, and then I recently got into investigating some of the other organizations in it, and it's stomach churning. And for me, that reason alone, even without the content in this, the organizations and where they come from, where their money comes from, their ideologies, I don't want them anywhere near my child, anywhere near them, or anybody else's child.
No, exactly. And what I'm going to be bringing you guys, I'm going to be well, we're just going to educate you fully on the different types of sex abuse, what it looks like, how we can spot it, how perpetrators think, how we can become gatekeepers to disclosure, what is a barrier to disclosure. So every week we bring you something, and you know, we just want everyone educated, guys, right? We want everyone, because people say, oh, the teachers won't bring this in, but the teachers can't see what we see because they don't know these problems. You know, you can't expect them to spot something if they don't know about it. Like that Judith Roberts commented on our thing the other day, and she was like, I've been teaching RSE for 20 years, blah, blah, blah. And like I said to her, well, I haven't been teaching RSE for 20 years, Judith, but what I have got is, and I listed all my credentials and my experience in perpetrators of abuse and this field. And like I said to her, you might have been teaching this for 20 years, right? But how dare you stand there and say it's safeguards when you know nothing about perpetrators of abuse? Yeah. It's impossible.
Yeah.
And we are just the missing piece of that jigsaw. And this missing piece of the jigsaw is not just for the services, it's for our households as well, guys.
Yeah.
We need to make Wales the safest place for safeguarding kids. We've got a terrible history, and the buck has to stop with us, guys. We can actually change things here. We are willing to do it. We are willing to put ourselves in the government's way, force our way in there to do the work for them. Yeah. You know, which will save them millions and millions of pounds. We are doing that. We've got lots of research going on behind the scenes as well, guys. We've had some like stats back from the police forces about assaults in schools and things like that. We've also got data from the Education Council Wales. So over time, you know, so we're actually looking at things in Wales. When you look at UNESCO, right, who we're referencing, you'll find that's done on 87 studies. And 29 of those were in third world countries, and 40 were done in impoverished communities in America. Our research is from Wales, for Wales. Simple as that.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, good show tonight, ladies. I know we could all go on about this for hours, but I think we've done a good job of just kind of saying what our problem is with all of this tonight.
And what I want to add,
we'll go into those problems and elaborate even further on future shows.
Yeah, definitely. And what I just want to add, like, to anybody, because we've spoken to a lot of people about RSE. We just want people to look into what we're saying. That's all we want. And when you do start looking into it, then it doesn't matter, as you know, Judith, that woman says, she's been working with RSE for 20 years. It doesn't matter what's happened or what's been happening in this country. You really do need to just look at where we're getting our information from and where this new education is coming from. So it's really important for everybody to do that.
And I think the fact of the lack of transparency should be alarm bells to any parent. It should be alarm bells that when you're contacting your school, they haven't got a clue. It should be alarm bells that you don't have a clue. It's
alarm bells that
Kirsty Williams is lying about what this education is.
Should be alarm bells that it's taken us to show you our education minister hasn't got a clue.
Yeah.
That's not our job. This curriculum bill has been going through the Senate for 3 years. It's gone through 4 stages. We've sent evidence in this meantime that they have to investigate, and they failed to do so. You know, guys, don't put all your eggs in one basket and all that.
Right, I gotta go. I've just had my daughter come downstairs with a tooth hanging out of her head. I can't pull my tooth out anymore. It's only, I've twisted it. She comes down and she said, Mum, I've pulled my tooth out. And I said, smile, and I looked at her and I went, that's not even the wobbly tooth.
That's the wrong one. Thanks for watching us, guys. Catch us next Sunday, 9 o'clock.
Yeah,
all right, brilliant. Thank you, guys. Good night.
Thanks, everyone. Bye, everyone.
Bye.